Okay, I think I'm live. Am I live or not? This is hard work. I'm trying to figure out Zoom, so if anybody can watch me or see me, sorry. Okay, I can see myself. Finally, it's taken me a while to get on. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to be talking about the inner critic and how through life, a lot of us have anxiety that is based on the fact that we have come from probably a place of childhood or wounding where we end up having this inner critic in our lives that basically annihilates us. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, and here we go. And I'm going to talk through, if anybody joins in, you can say hello to me. And I'm going to talk through what I know about the inner critic and go through some slides. So first of all, I'm playing around because it's a new system I'm using, so I'll get comfortable with this as I go. So what we have, this is, let me bring up this and go back one. Gosh, I'm really organized today. I have to say, actually, I'm on antibiotics for a infection which I've had to take 3 days, which has made me a bit woozy, so do forgive me if I said I'd be on at 9:15 and I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, here I am. So this is about the inner critic and how we deconstruct the inner critic. And deconstructing the inner critic takes a lot of mindfulness and work. And the reason is that from childhood, a lot of us can have a voice in our heads that basically isn't ours. So it means that we have to, as an adult, we have to reparent ourselves. And in order to have a good life, we have to get rid of the inner critic that tells us that we're not good enough and that there's something wrong with us. So deconstructing the inner critic, what happens is when people have complex PTSD, which is really how most people will understand it, is that you may have anxiety, social anxiety, or feel that there's something wrong with you, or you're not good enough, or you're overly self-aware. And through trauma and complex PTSD, we have a situation where we go through life as adults in a lot of trauma or reliving that trauma. But how we do it unknowingly is that we have this voice that's telling us that we're not good enough, that we basically have got all of these personal problems. So let me see here. Okay. I'm going to start again, I think, because I'm all over the place. Right. So your wishes matter, deconstructing the inner critic. So I'm going to go to the first slide. So what we have is Pete Walker, and he has given a list here, and it's normal and safe wants and needs to wish and hope for, to cultivate with mental, spiritual, and emotional energy. So he goes through this list and he says, I want to develop a more constantly loving and accepting relationship with myself. I want an increasing capacity for self-acceptance. And number 2 is I want to learn to become the best possible friend to myself. So again, when we have this inner critic in our lives, we're not ourselves. We're basically not friendly to ourselves on any level. Number 3 is I want to attract into my life relationships that are based on love, respect, fairness, and mutual support. Number 4, I want to uncover full uninhibited self-expression. And number 5 is I want to attain the best possible physical health. So again, if we're basically berating ourselves all the time, then what happens is that we can go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, and we get anxious, and it's all connected often to stuff that's happened in our past. So we need to be aware of what we're doing. And psychoeducation is one of the main ways through complex PTSD, in my view. The next, number 6, is I want to cultivate a balance of vitality and peace. And then number 7, I want to attract to myself loving friends and a loving community. Number 8 is I want to increasing freedom from toxic shame. So toxic shame, again, is that voice will tell us that there's something wrong with us and we'll feel shameful about the way we feel about things. Number 9, I want increasing freedom from unnecessary fear. And number 10 is I want rewarding and fulfilling work. And again, things like that, it's like rewarding and fulfilling work. That's a process. It's as we go through life and we look at ourselves, we can begin to find out what we do want in our lives and what sort of work we want to do. So many things are process orientated. Number 11 is I want a fair amount of peace of mind, spirit, soul, and body. And again, that's processing. Number 12, I want to increase my capacity to play and have fun. And number 13, I want to make plenty of room for beauty and nature in my life. Number 14 is I want sufficient physical and monetary resources. So again, with these things, we can know that we're always in process. Number 15, I want a fair amount of help, self, human, or divine, to get what I want to need. And again, people with CPTSD, it's very difficult for us to ask for help because often, maybe as children, we did ask for help and we were shushed away or we weren't taken notice of. So as adults, we're doing a relearning. It's a relearning progress. Number 16 is I want God's love, grace, and blessing. So that will be different for different people because everybody's understanding of God is different. But, for me, it's that the idea is simple. That means there's no separation. So I can see, source or whatever you want to call it in a flower. I can see it in so many things as I go through life. Number 17 is I want a balance of work, rest, and play. So we do need to look at our lives and see how we can balance out our lives. And number 18 is I want a balance of stability and change, because clearly we don't want things staying the same. So stability is really looking at our own lives and not comparing ourselves to others and finding out what we want for ourselves. Number 19 is I want a balance of loving interaction, healthy self-sufficiency. So you can basically look at that and see what you think. How that might apply to you. That's what I mean. And I want, number 20, I want full emotional expression with a balance of laughter and tears. So, again, process. Number 21, Pete Walker made me smile here. He says, I want sexual satisfaction. So clearly, that will be part of our lives because we're humans. So it's looking at what that means for us individually. Number 22, I want to find effective and non-abusive ways to deal with anger. And there are many ways to deal with anger in a healthy way. So if you find yourself angering and you're berating yourself, then you can look at ways in maybe that you can begin to not berate yourself, and healthy anger, like you can do things like you can work out, or you can, go for a run. Something I did for quite a while, I'd use a foam bat and I would beat my pillows. So getting out healthy anger is not a bad thing. Healthy anger it's part of us. And if we suppress our anger, which is quite natural, we see children do it. They'll get a rage about something. Just because we're adults, we still might have feelings like, sometimes we just want to scream at the top of our voice. And if you drive a car, people do that. We know what the truth is. We don't do these things often in front of people. They are things we do in our own time. And we don't take our anger out on other people. Number 23 is I want all of this for each and every other being. And that's important. That's a beautiful thing to feel that for others. This is taken from the Tao of Fully Feeling by Pete Walker. And his book that I refer to often in my videos is Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. Okay, so the next slide. This is a beautiful photo that a friend of mine took, and we can see the beauty there, like the grace. I've titled this, Grace Begins Within. And, part of our grace is that we have the eyes to see. So when we've been through trauma, we're having to, get to a point where we're going to have to start looking around us and seeing the beauty and not just seeing all of the doom and gloom, because it's so easy to, be stuck. I would say that through a breakdown that I had, I spent 1.5 years recovering from that. And you know, we don't need to force ourselves, but we can begin to see the simple things in life that will take us to another level in our being. And grieving also is really important in complex PTSD, grieving and healthy anger, which society shuns away from. People don't like to see people grieving, and people often don't like to see people, like if somebody cries, we say stop, and people say that to babies as well. Like I you know, when a baby's crying, people say, oh, stop crying. It's like, you know, it's a natural flow of expression, and we need to get to a point where we're not repressing ourselves and letting it flow, but in healthy ways. And then also verbal ventilation with a good friend is really helpful, or a therapist if you haven't got a good friend, but there are friends out there who will resonate with you and who will understand you. And it's good to have a few to share experiences with. So grace does begin within, no doubt. And I love this picture here. And you can see she's got weighing the heart and the jewels. And a saying I heard yesterday on a video, which was really beautiful, which is intention is creation and doubt is the eraser. So we can begin to look at, you know, how we think, and we will see that, you know, our thinking, like our intention to heal and our intention to look after ourselves is how we create, and doubt is the eraser. So it's important that we stop doubting, you know, that we're going to heal, because we can, and it's bit by bit, and it's never all or nothing. And Pete Walker in his book, you know, really says this so many times, you know, it's not all or nothing. We have victories as we go through life, and we have bad days as well, but overall we're getting to a point of getting rid of that inner critic is the main thing. So the other thing we can do is positive imaging is a powerful adjunct to thought substitution. We can learn to short circuit the perfectionist and fear-mongering processes of the inner critic by invoking images of past successes and accomplishments, as well as pictures of safe and loving places and friends. We can also use guided meditations to demonstrate and reinforce the use of positive imagery substitution. So if you think about that, I mean, right now, if I said to you, for instance, I said, you know, take a picture or to hold in mind a beautiful beach, you know, and you're under a palm tree and the breeze is gently blowing and you're feeling cool and you're feeling relaxed and you've got a beautiful, you know, maybe sparkling glass of water. And if you step into that, you can see we've got this ability to positive imaging. And if we train ourselves to start positive imaging, and if you really think of a good friend or somebody that makes you smile, or you think of a joke that you heard last week, or somebody made you laugh, we can go back and bring that back into our right this moment. So we often have a lot of bad memories from childhood, but we have to start flipping those by positive imaging. And I know it's not that easy for all of us. You know, some people have had such a hard time. So it's, you know, this is just one angle of many in looking at anxiety and CPTSD. I love this picture here. This is our planet Earth covered in beauty and flowers and the greenery. And I've written here that life is a path and undoing is a process. And in observation, we are always becoming. So that's worth knowing, that we're always becoming. So in the undoing of the past, we're always becoming, and it's worth holding that in mind. So next slide. Okay. Now, this is interesting, and it's going to be interesting for some people who understand faster EFT. I'm going into eutactics, but I'm trained in faster EFT. And part of the thing we use is the art of change, which is very powerful. It's trademarked to eutactics and faster EFT, but I'm going to read through it, and I'll put some links below how you can, you know, find out more for yourself about this. So tapping is how we can reconstruct or deconstruct stuff that's hurt us, past imaging and memories, and this is how we do it with it's called the art of change. we name the problem. So if you had a pen and paper right now, but we would tap through this. So this is worth knowing that this is part of faster EFT. We would name a problem, then we would say, how do you know you have the problem? And then, have you ever experienced this before? So for instance, let's say your problem is that you don't have enough, money, for instance. Then you say, how do you know you have this problem? You say, well, because I don't have enough. Then you would say, have you ever experienced this before? So for many people through life, money comes in and goes out, and we have good times and not so. Life is like a wave. We go through different things. So it's rare that money is fixed, but it's a flow of energy. But, have you ever experienced this before? And you could answer that. Do you know anyone else who has this problem? So with the question I just asked, clearly, a lot of people would know others who have this problem. And then you want to say, what does it feel like? What does this problem feel like? And what memories do you have that support this? So you could give a list of memories that support this, and that's what we would tap on, those list of memories. And then if this problem was a person, who would it be? So you might relate that to somebody there. Also, if this problem had a voice, what would it say? So the voice might say, you're really stupid, what's wrong with you? And that is the inner critic, and that's the voice that we want to banish. And I like this picture, by the way, because it's a coming out of our shell, so to speak. It is like stepping out of our shell. And then it says, what do you believe about this problem? So what are your beliefs about the problem you have? And how bad could this get? And we've all got great imaginations how bad things can get for us. But it's worth noting those, because that's part of our defense system as well. Then we have, if this problem was 1,000 times worse, how bad would it be? So for instance, in the case of money, you might say, I'm going to end up on the streets. Nobody's going to love me. I'm not going to have any food to eat. We can go really deep on how bad things can get for us. And we tend to do that. And again, inner critic. So then we ask, if this problem is completely gone, who are we without this? So in the case of money, we haven't got that problem anymore, for instance, then we're going to have a whole new way of looking at life. We haven't got that problem, it's gone. And who are we without this problem? Who are you without this problem? And then if you future pace this, which means you've no longer got this problem, you look 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead, 5 years ahead, and we feel, what does that feel like? So there you go. So next slide. So this is beautiful. This is my last slide. And it says, Carl Jung. Now, what's interesting, not everybody knows who Carl Jung is. I do, and this is a picture a friend of mine took here. Beautiful picture of a flower, fresh and beautiful. And we've got the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. It is just these intense conflicts and their conflagration which are needed to produce valuable and lasting results. Now, Carl Jung, he was the founder of psychoanalysis as we know it. He was friends with Freud. Now, everybody, I have to say, not everybody, but most people do know who Freud is. So often if I'm chatting to people when I'm out and about, I'll say, oh, I'll mention Carl Jung, and they say, oh, who's that? And then I'll say, do you know Freud? And they'll say, yes, they know who Freud is. So Freud was, the story is 20 years older than Carl Jung, and they were friends for a period of time when they were exchanging notes, and they did have a friendship, but they ended that friendship at some point because they had differing beliefs. And I'm a great fan or follower of Carl Jung. I read his books and also Audible stuff and other information. And Carl Jung actually died on the 6th of June, 1961, if I've got the date right. So it's the anniversary of his death a few days ago. But he's very close in my heart, I have to say. So there you go. I think that's the last slide. I'm going to stop my share and I'm back. Okay, so that's a bit of information there that's going to get you used to understanding that the inner critic is like a voice in our heads that is annihilating us. And I would say that I know people that have not had trauma, childhood trauma, who also have an inner critic. It seems to me that it's part of being human, but at the same time, if we don't deal with our inner critic, then it's going to deal with us. And it's those things where maybe, we might look in the mirror and we'll annihilate ourselves on the way we look, or we might think we're stupid or ugly, or we should be somewhere else. We should be qualified in something that we're not qualified in, or we need to be a particular way or have a certain amount of money. So this is not the way to live life, clearly. And some healthy criticism is a brilliant thing. If we're being, I shouldn't say this, if we're being an ass to somebody, then, being able to objectify that and realize that we are is very useful. But when we're just going around annihilating ourselves for our human foibles, this is not good. The other thing we can do is image, which I do, our inner child. I've got a very beautiful relationship with my inner child now, my own little girl inside me, but she can be outside of me. I can, hold her hand and walk along the street with her and stuff like that. So in my mind, imagery, and I walk slowly, and, sink into that, mothering your own child is a really beautiful thing, taking away all of that fear and softening the thoughts. If you had your child with you, or a child and it was you, you're not going to berate it. You're just going to give it love. So I hope that this is a bit of useful information for you. I'm going to stop share. And hopefully, I did start off this video a bit interesting. I had antibiotics for 3 days for a UTI infection, which has really annoyed me because I was trying to deal with it through oregano oil and like natural products like cranberry juice and stuff like that, but it wouldn't go. So it sort of zoned me out a bit. Okay, that's it for today. I really appreciate anybody watching out there, and I'll be back. I'm going to make an astrology video now. I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.